Hello, and welcome to Sideways. Could you hear that noise? It's not bird song this week. Actually, that's the sound of the dishwasher. Daisy's on house arrest this week because she's had an operation, so we can't walk very far, which is why I'm doing this introduction in the house again. So this week, after we focused a couple of episodes ago on anxiety, an emotion that lives in the future, we're looking back at the feelings that have stayed with us from the years already past. I find I can't recall any famous hijacks. We mourn the sad death of someone we spoke about in one of our very early episodes. We wax lyrical about healthy rituals and debate the joys of wet shaving. Haunted by the past. Hello.
Good evening to you.
Do you like my Halloween lights?
I do, yeah. It looks very, you can't say festive, can you? Is that more Christmassy?
It is a festival, isn't it?
Yeah, it's seasonal, isn't it? Welcome to Season 8, Episode 1.
Oh, yeah. I realised that when I was posting last week's episode. I thought, that's another one in the can.
It is another season in the can, so we're just starting a new one. And this one was, I originally had the idea of doing an episode called Hijacked by the Past,
right?
Which was looking at how and why bad things that have happened to us in the past hijack our current emotions and our thought processes. But I changed it to Haunted by the Past.
Oh, I can see what you've done there.
Yeah, I did it.
What's the date?
I did it for a couple of reasons. And in fact, as it turned out, we're actually recording this on Tuesday evening of Halloween, aren't we?
Exactly. So I'm hoping that by being here, I'm going to avoid any trick-or-treaters knocking at my door.
Yeah, well, you can keep your head down a little bit, can't you?
Exactly, yeah.
But also I decided to change it from hijacking to Haunted by the Past, because when you Google hijacking, all sorts of things come up, and they're very unpleasant.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes about some of the famous hijacks that have been made. And, yes, so it was taking me down a lot of rabbit holes that I didn't want to go down.
I often use the word hijacking in the context of with something like anxiety, for example. When anxiety is at its fiercest, you are essentially being hijacked by your emotions.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't suppose much of that came up when you put hijacked into.
I should have been. No, it didn't. I should have been more specific, I think, really, in what I'd put in the search bar.
It brought you up a list of famous hijacks, presumably.
It did, yeah. It talked about Princess Anne when she was nearly hijacked, and all this sort of thing. So
I remember. If someone asked me to name a famous hijack, I don't think I'd be able to do it.
No, it's quite tough, isn't it? Quite tough. They don't tend to happen so much recently. But I know that
they've gone out of fashion, one could say, couldn't they?
Have a little bit. Yeah. It's not a trend I want to see come back. That's for sure.
No.
But there was before we get on to that. I woke up on Sunday morning, as you probably did, to the very sad news about the passing of Matthew Perry, who played Chandler Bing in Friends. And it reminded me of, we did an episode, didn't we? Back in season 1, it was. So episode 6. So very early days, and we're still recording these episodes sitting around your dining room table.
Yeah, with the creek.
Yeah, and that was just, it was called Chandler Bing, and we talked all about Matthew Perry on that occasion. It was nearly 4 years ago we did that episode. It's crazy, isn't it?
That's quite frightening, isn't it?
It is quite frightening. But there was a lot of people in the recovery community that have been quite touched by Matthew's passing. As I was too. I found it quite shocking, really, at the age of 54. And we don't know at the moment. Obviously, the autopsy results aren't out yet, but he's obviously passed away in his hot tub. There's probably more to come from that as to what actually happened. I'm just hoping and praying there weren't any drink or drugs in his system. I think that would be a real shame that he wasn't clean on his deathbed. But I'm sure we'll find out more as time elapses.
Do you think that, so if that were to be the case, would that have an added impact on your peers in recovery who feel sad at his passing?
It'd be a negative impact, wouldn't it? If the cause of his death was drink or drugs, I think that would be.
I suppose it would, particularly as by all accounts he was very supportive of people in recovery, wasn't he? He was very supportive of helping people to get into recovery and helping them maintain their sobriety. And if ultimately, that's what's taken him, that would be particularly sad.
It is particularly sad because I always think people that have a level of celebrity that he obviously had, when they are addicts and they use their platform constructively and responsibly, I think it does us people in the recovery community a hell of a lot of good. So yeah, it is very sad. I mean, looking at some of I went back and actually listened to our past episodes. It was quite quaint, really.
Did you? Was I particularly good on it?
No, that wasn't what struck me, I've got to say. but it was only about 23 minutes long, so it's quite a short one. We used to be a lot shorter back then.
I expect a lot of people were quite grateful of those days.
I think that, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's less drivelling on, I think. But anyway, it's the up to date. Listening to that episode from 4 years ago, and then listening what the news is that I've learned about Matthew Perry since then, and obviously there's more come out now. And they said he lapsed sort of between 60 and 70 times.
Really, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
News to me.
And the fact he'd spent nearly £7 million, they reckon, on trying to get clean in different rehabs and that sort of thing. Now, whether these figures are accurate or not, some of it is going to be journalism, I'm sure. But he did mention he's missing 3 years, which I quite liked and related to, obviously.
Only 3?
Only 3 years he had. But listening back to the episode we recorded, at that point, we just mentioned as he couldn't remember 3 episodes of Friends. So again, we don't know what the overall picture is, but hopefully now he's got freedom from the demons, as we say.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I know we have spoken about this in different ways in the past, but if he had been in rehab anything like that number of times, there must come a tipping point where you realise that you've been in rehab so many times and then lapsed again that it's in your head that it's almost inevitable that that's exactly what the pattern is.
I'm sure it becomes a habit, yeah.
In the same way as, we can become habitual with almost any of our emotional neuroses. Yes. That must be habitual as well. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to lapse and then I'll be back in rehab. And that's just the cycle that I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Which needs outside help apart from that to sort of break that cycle.
Yeah. Because then you get to the point then where actually, you've been in rehab that many times that it becomes less likely that you stay clean every time you go into rehab almost.
If you look at the studies, it shows that each relapse that you have, it's harder to come back from. So you can imagine doing that 60 or 70 times. It must have been hell for the lad. And I feel really sad about that. Really sad. But anyway, should we go to our subject matter? Bit of a sad.
Now you've brought us all down.
I know, a bit of a sad before we start. Normally I like to start with a little bit of a jolly, but I'll save the one I was going to do until a later date.
Oh, great. So this episode is going to be unremittingly miserable then?
Well, I hope not. Not. Perhaps we'll cheer up at the end, I'm sure.
Okay.
So subject matter. I mean, it's quite a good follow-on from the episode we did a couple of weeks ago about anxiety, because we've discussed often about anxiety only existing in the future. And this episode looks at the guilt and the shame associated that which only exists in the past, which again amply illustrates why the here and now is so important, especially for us in recovery and the one day at a time mantra. I certainly do, but do you think a lot of us have a hard time moving on from our past when we feel haunted by past traumas and relationships and incidents? I mean, you must have people come into your realm as a therapist often with exactly those sort of issues.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they're things that have happened in the past, the recent past that they're very conscious of, maybe the distant past that they're very conscious of. But of course, our past, regardless of whether we see it as traumatic or not, has a massive impact on shaping us. So, we, in that sense, we never escape our past because we are we're a product of it, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. But it's when we get obsessed with the bad stuff, isn't it? I've often had those thoughts. Well, I wish I could go back and change the past. And there's so many regrets, which again, just that thought in itself is a very negative emotion.
Yeah, I suppose that's the difference between being able to learn from the past,
Yeah,
and not being able to let the past go in such a way that it almost ceases to be your past. It starts to be your present because you haven't let go of it.
it bleeds over, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in obviously in recovery, if you can't, I mean, you know this because you're seeing this all the time. If you can't let go of your years of active addiction, then obviously that will hamper and stall your recovery, won't it? You have to be able to let go of what's gone, forgive yourself, deal with that in whatever way is necessary in order that you can move on from it. And I think that's probably, that's true of any trauma that we experience. We are shaped by it, but we don't have to carry it with us forever. I don't know who said it, but I remember someone saying, not about addiction specifically, but nobody has to have an unhappy childhood forever. Yeah.
It is very true. And I want to come on to later on sort of tips looking at helping us when we do have these issues. But I've just got a couple of points here as to the reasons why we struggle, which come up in the research. Well, in fact, there's 4 points. I just wanted to go through those with you if I could and see what your thoughts are on them.
Yeah.
The first one is we keep bringing up our old pain and hurting ourselves again and again in the process. Past issues can hurt us more in the present than they did when they actually happened, all because of our perspective. Which I think is quite true, isn't it? As you say, it bleeds over, doesn't it?
It does. And I think when that's happening, really the challenge for you, the work there is to find out, try and understand why you keep beating yourself with the past. Yeah. It's almost I won't allow myself to let go of the past. And there can be all manner of reasons for it. You feel as if you're not worthy of letting go of it, or you feel as if you still deserve to be punished for it, or whatever it might be. But I think if you find yourself in that kind of loop, that's the work.
Yeah.
Why are you not letting go of this? What is it? How is it serving you now to keep holding on to it? Yeah,
and that leads quite nicely on to the second point, which is about our mental habits when they're rooted in the subconscious mind. And it governs how we think and our thoughts and feelings and behaviours. But going on to what you're saying is, the past, even when it's painful, is less scary for us because it's familiar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've discussed that so often, haven't we, with addiction, where even though we were doing a hell of a lot of, we were acting in a destructive manner both to ourselves and everyone around us, it's still familiar, and therefore we get dragged back to that. So we get stuck back into the past in that case. We almost rely on it.
Yeah, one of the things that we all want is a sense of certainty.
Yeah.
And that need for certainty can be satisfied in different ways, and they don't have to be positive. No. So a negative way of satisfying our need for certainty is to keep doing the old destructive things we always did. So it's on one hand, you think, well, that's illogical. Why do you keep hurting yourself? But on the other hand, it does provide the certainty that we all want. It.
Yeah, well, that does make sense. And when we were doing that episode on anxiety, I remember thinking as we were talking it through that it struck me that sometimes the anxiety about what's happening in the future almost forces us back to the past, to that familiarity. It's staying stuck in the past. It gives us a way of avoiding the future because we're concentrating on what's happened in the past, and so therefore we haven't got the capacity to worry about what's going to happen in the future. So again, that is a sort of, and I certainly used to feel that. So it was more comfortable to sit in with those horrible feelings than to face what was coming up.
Yeah, I mean the other way in which people illustrate it, and everyone listening will have heard someone say this at some point. You might even say it about yourself, but it's when people say, "I've always been an anxious person."
Okay, yeah.
Well, that's what you are describing there. Your subtext there is safety. I feel safe in this.
Yes.
I feel safe playing this role of an anxious person. The idea of being born anxious. Well, I'm not buying that. But it's always interesting when someone says, "Oh, I've always been an anxious person." If you ask them, "Well, you think you were born anxious?" Then they start to be hesitant. And so then you can kind of unpack this idea that, well, actually what you're really saying is you feel comfortable in that role. You feel comfortable with that. And I think the same is true of, aspects of our history. We feel comfortable identifying with aspects of us that we are familiar with.
I agree. I mean, it almost becomes a safe space, doesn't it? That past where it's, even though it's riddled with anxiety, it still represents something we're familiar with.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be anxiety. It could be pain.
Yeah, true. Yes.
We wonder why people wonder why they keep repeating the same patterns and keep putting themselves back into painful situations. And it's the same thing. It's because that's what you know. It's like, if you know how to get through that pain, then it's not really surprising you keep putting yourself back in there, because it's feels kind of safe in its lack of safety.
Yeah, which is a bit of a dichotomy, but you're absolutely right.
That's right. A good word to be using.
Yeah, it is really. Yeah, especially after a long day at work and then doing this in the evening. Yeah.
Quite so. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Number 4, the last point there was, you can be haunted by your past because you haven't learned mindful ways of releasing attachment to things, events, memories, and people. And we have toxic thought patterns of dwelling and obsessing and replaying things and clinging on to them. So it's that relationship we have with those events or people in the past that we haven't moved away from, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, it's the same stuff as I was saying before. If you're not letting go of something from the past, at some level, it's serving you to hold on.
Yeah.
You need to understand why it is. If you say to someone, "Why do you keep holding on to that then? Why do you keep holding on to that anger," or whatever it might be? And they'll say, "Well, or I might say to them, what role is that playing for you? What purpose is it serving? How is it helping you?" And they'll say, "Oh, it's not helping me at all." But at some level, it must be. Because if it wasn't doing something for you, you would let go of it, even if it's just that it's providing certainty for you. Mm. So really finding out what role it's playing for you is important.
It is, and that's sort of the tips I want to move on to sort of covers that. Because one of the tips was about creating a positive mantra to counter these painful thoughts. And the example they gave in the research was when, and a lot of us have probably said this, "I can't believe this has happened to me." And if you spun that into a more positive perspective, such as, I'm fortunate to be able to find a new path, one that's good for me. So it's the same set of circumstances you're dealing with, but you're just dealing in a more positive manner.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe this has happened to me is the language of a victim. I can't believe this has happened to me. The inference there is, I am powerless.
Yep.
This is not my responsibility. It's beyond my control. And so whenever you feel yourself talking about something, whatever it is in that way, you are putting yourself in a kind of position of powerlessness, and that's not a great place to be. So yeah, you're right. You need to be able to think about that differently in a way that enables you to take some sort of agency. Yeah. You might not be able to change what's happened. Maybe that's it. But you have to be able to use your agency to change the future in a way that enables you to stop feeling like a victim.
What about something at the point that came up was about creating physical distance? So creating physical or psychological distance between ourselves and the person or situation can help.
Definitely. I mean, two examples of that. With addiction, don't go in pubs.
Yeah.
I know you were a slight anomaly with that. But again, we've discussed the fact that everyone's kind of way of getting into recovery and sustaining recovery is different. Yeah. But generally speaking, if you want to stop drinking alcohol, try and stay away from pubs for a bit.
Yeah. Or any triggering event.
Yeah. Parties, stag do's, weddings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one example of that. And another example of it that most people will be familiar with is when you've broken up with someone in a relationship, don't keep following them on Facebook and looking them up on Instagram, seeing when they've got a new partner, or sending them text to see how they are under the pretense of creating a friendship. Because all you do is you kind of perpetuate the pain. Yeah. So there needs to be a gap in order for a situation to move on.
That's quite a good one, really, because that is a very good example as to where we're continually holding on to that past, even though it's causing us pain.
Exactly. It's like having a stone in your shoe and not taking it out.
Yes. Yes, I've known some people that I consider stones in my shoe, that's for sure. Another point was practicing mindfulness. We've touched on mindfulness a lot, haven't we, in the past, and that comes up quite
It
often.
does come up. It comes up a lot. I think it comes up a lot, and it comes up in something like this because it's a good way of saying, try and stay anchored in the present moment.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're anchored in the present moment, you are less prone to being haunted by the past.
Which makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, the way that, I don't know if you planned this, but this week we're talking about the past, and, a couple of weeks we're talking about the future with anxiety. Was it last week or the week before?
The week before last, wasn't it? Yeah.
So in that sense, mindfulness is a good reminder that whether you time travel into the future or the past, it's not great to spend too much time there. I mean, we all do it.
Yeah.
But if you can spend the majority of your time in the present moment, then you're on balance, you're going to be happier.
You're going to be okay. No, I agree. And also the next point, which often comes up, is talks about being gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
So, to treat yourself like you would a friend, which we all find that quite difficult to do. We're all quite good at giving advice out to friends, and people then don't take that same attitude with themselves.
Well, you say we all are.
Okay. Some of us.
Yeah. And the reason I pick you up on that is because I think certainly people in recovery will probably find that quite difficult.
Yeah.
Because of the reasons that we've already discussed. And, there's a lot in their past that perhaps they find it difficult to forgive themselves for. But it's such an important one, because I'll tell you why. If when things are tough, or you're thinking back to things you've done in the past that you don't feel, great about, and you beat yourself up for it, you perpetuate that pain and make it even harder to overcome. Mm. And it's also one of the reasons, as I was saying earlier, that people don't let go of the past. They feel like they don't deserve it. No, I should be bloody beaten for what I did in the past. I need to remember it so I don't make those terrible mistakes again. It's like, well, when are you going to give yourself a break? How long have you got to do that for before you can say to yourself, actually, I'm going to give myself an opportunity to live a good life now? So it's important to remember, you can do that for as long as you like, but it's important to remember that if you are going to eternally beat yourself up, you'll never get to that point where you feel a kind of freedom to live a good life.
Yeah. No, that's very apt for us people in recovery. You're absolutely right.
I don't mean the good life with Felicity Kendall and Richard Bryars.
You can't beat a good sort of 70s, 80s sitcom like that, can you?
It was definitely 70s, wasn't it?
It was 70s.
I don't think it got into the 80s, did it?
I don't think it did, no. No, you're right. I'm losing my place now. Oh, yeah. Good. And what about allowing negative emotions to flow? Now, I know you're a big fan of working through your emotions and not trying to avoid them. Which
it depends. I suppose it depends what it means by letting your negative emotions to flow. If it means letting your anger flow in such a way that you go out punching people in the face, then I'd say no.
Doesn't sound good.
Or if you're letting your negative emotions flow in a way that means you are constantly berating yourself, no. But if it means let them flow in as much as let me examine them, let me feel them, let me know what's going on here without passing judgment on them, without saying this is good, this is bad, just being able to say this is how it is, then yes, I'm a big believer in that.
Something we'd need to practice. I'm sure that doesn't come very easily.
I don't find it very easy either. I mean, a lot of these things that we talk about, I mean, I'm sure people don't think this, but it's not like I can do all these things and other people can't. It's just really more about having an intent that won't do you damage. We all fall into holes. We all struggle with stuff. There are always times where we don't get it right, but it goes back to that point about self-compassion. The more compassionate you can be with yourself when things don't go well, the quicker you get through it.
And which leads on quite nicely to the next point, really, is if we've been hurt by someone in the past, we've got to accept that the other person may never apologise. Because I think if we're waiting for an apology, that may never come, and that's going to stop us from moving on, isn't it?
It is, and in an episode in the past, I think we talked about how if you feel someone has upset you or wronged you in some way, and you feel you want to raise that with them, you can only guarantee being satisfied if your point of satisfaction is telling them how you feel.
Yeah.
If you will not be satisfied until they get it in such a way that you can see a regret in them or you get an apology, now your happiness is in someone else's hands. And I think that's the point you're making.
It comes on to the point of about forgiveness as well, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I know it's really tough to forgive people sometimes if you've been hurt in the past, but again, that will anchor you back amongst all that pain and negative emotion. If you don't forgive and move on, I mean, it's very difficult to forgive other people and very difficult to forgive ourselves, both of which are vital in this, what we're talking about here, moving through the emotions and getting to a happier place. And just the last tip I want to look at, the last two really. The first one was about doing your own work and focusing on yourself and focus on something you're grateful for. Now, normally this would lead on to our gratitude list, but we've changed things around a little bit so it doesn't smoothly seg into
You
there.
could have shifted things around, but I expect that would have been uncomfortable for you.
It would have been uncomfortable. It would have ruined my template. But
we don't want that, do we?
No, we don't.
No.
And the last one was seeking professional help, which sort of leads nicely into the sort of area you work in.
I think this one is an area where it's quite useful to think about therapy because we're talking about the past.
Yes.
And there's a lot that lurks in our past that we might not immediately be able to join the dots between. You know, sometimes not every therapist, but a lot of the work I do in therapy is about putting pieces together from things that have happened to create clarity and understanding. And it is hard to do that on your own. And it's hard to do it with someone who's got an investment in your life, but it's easy to do it with someone who doesn't hold any, doesn't hold a kind of stake in you in any way, other than existing in a kind of alliance that is designed to help you understand, why you feel the way you do.
And it goes back to it's basically cathartic to start talking about those things anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the time it is. I think people do. People sometimes are surprised by how much better they feel just talking about stuff.
Yeah. Without any particular input.
Without anything kind of shifting. That's the first stage. I feel like I've spoken about that now, and it doesn't feel like such a burden. That's often the first step.
Yeah. So that was really the tips of overcoming that. Is there anything else you'd like to add on when we're haunted or hijacked by the past?
No, I don't think there is really. I think we've covered it all. I think that, and I know it didn't provide you with the smooth segue that you wanted, but gratitude is an important one. And one of the other reasons that gratitude is important is that also, like mindfulness, anchors you in the present. Yes, you're saying to yourself, "What is it today that I feel happy about? I feel grateful for." That's not going to be something that's past. That's in the past. It's not going to be something that's in the future. It's got to be something now. Yeah. And so that is a really useful technique when we feel as if we're spending too much time digging around in the past. Good. No, I agree. So, yes, it would have been nice to go onto the gratitude list, but I'm going to leave that just slightly on the back burner then, because we do our feature that we talk about, which is 100 skills every person should master. Yeah. And this week is wet shaving. Okay. Now, do you remember did you start off when you started shaving with not with wet shaving, but with an electric razor? I did. I remember the first razor I had, I think, was it my brother that gave it to me? No, it must have been, no, it was my mum. My mum and dad gave it to me for Christmas. Yeah, I had mine for Christmas. My brother, who is 11 years older than me, I remember him, I don't know how old I was, but I can remember him laughing at the idea that I should need to shave, which was a bit humiliating. So I was probably 13 or 14 or something, but I don't remember. It was a Philly shave. Was it? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. And, but on balance, I much prefer a wet shave. You get a closer finish, don't you? I just like the process of it. I think I quite like ritual. I'd have been quite a good drug addict. Yeah, you would. Yeah, you like the ritualism, don't you? Because I love the ritual of making tea, the ritual of making coffee. I like the ritual of a wet shave. There's an example of me channeling my need for ritual into things that are, better for me than skinning up or chasing the dragon.
And I think that's a very good illustration. Certainly, the wet shaving comes into that. It's much better for you.
I don't know why in rehab programs they don't say to addicts, why don't you just go and have a wet shave? Stop taking heroin.
Yeah.
Go and have a wet shave. I don't know how it worked with women. Maybe they could go wet shaving their legs or something.
Well, I think you've hit on something. If we could just, that's it. The recovery process, we've sorted it now, haven't we?
I might trademark that and take it on Dragon's Den.
I'm out, but I think you're right. I think it'd be quite a tough sell and very reductionist to us poor addicts, but yes.
Yes, probably that's true, yeah. Anyway, so
yeah,
I certainly agree that it is an important skill and one that's also very enjoyable.
It is. I used to like watching my dad do it, where he had one of the old-fashioned brushes that he'd dip it into the foam, into a little pot that had the foam in there, or he'd whisk it up and it'd become foam, put it on his face, and then he'd shave.
I've got a shaving brush as well.
Have you? Yeah, they're good, aren't they? I haven't got one, but they do look good. And I always remember my dad when we used to go camping. He'd always wander up to the toilet block and he'd stand there and have a shave, and he'd use that system.
Yeah, it's at least I liked it until I realised that they make them out of badger hair. I wasn't quite so keen then.
I'm sure there's a more synthetic alternative these days.
I tell you what, I haven't ever done though. I've never used a cutthroat razor.
No, I mean that looks quite. It looks dangerous, doesn't it? I mean,
I wouldn't trust myself to be honest. I'm not sure I'd trust anyone else. I wouldn't want someone going at me with a cutthroat razor.
No, they use them in the barbers if you go in there for a shave, don't they?
Well, they did in the 1960s. I think the Turkish barbers still do.
Yeah. Obviously, look down back to the Sweeney Todd days, they probably did. But yeah.
Anyway,
yes, wet shaving. That's it. So
I'm in favour.
I think we should all master that, shouldn't we? Right. Okay. Should we go on to the gratitude list?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Did you want to go? I think it might be my turn to go first.
I think it is your turn this week. Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for the ticket man at the Hither Green railway station. Okay. Well, I'm grateful. There's a lot of fuss going on in the news at the moment about the ticket offices closing. I was really, really grateful because I'd never been to Hither Green railway station before. I was going into London, and the ticket guy was he was funny and he was jokey. He was jovial, and he was explaining to me the best way to do it. And it was you don't have to buy a ticket from there. You could just tap your bank card, like you do on the Underground. That worked from Hither Green into London, into the centre of London. And he watched me and he was laughing as I was trying to tap my bank card on the machine. He said, "No, by the door, mate. There's a thing by the door you've got to tap it on." So, and we were joking, and I thought that's what we need. We need people like that are jovial in quite a stressy situation there. He was sorting it out with a smile on his face. So I was very grateful.
So you're in favour of not closing the ticket offices, obviously?
Absolutely, yeah. I am totally in favour of that, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice when you get someone in that sort of scenario who reduces the anxiety of a situation.
Yeah, because normally they're miserable bastards, aren't they? But he was good.
Yeah, I'd have just laughed at you. I wouldn't have told you where to tap the card. I'd have been dining out on that story. We had this bloke in. He kept tapping his card. He couldn't get through the barrier. He missed his train in the end. It would have been brilliant.
Well, that was the point. I didn't want to miss my train, so it was the anxiety. He was helping to release that anxiety.
I can imagine you getting into a bit of a lather.
Yeah.
Without wanting to hark back on the wet shaving.
I was grateful for his input.
Very good. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for car radios.
Are you?
Yeah. In the last 2 days, I've spent a grand total of about 15 hours in the car driving because I had to drive to Scotland to take the dog to the vets.
Wow.
I didn't realise that there are local vets. I thought you had to go all the way to Scotland.
Well, they're the only ones that are available, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I had to take her for some special treatment. So I went up on Sunday and came back Monday night, got back 11 o'clock last night.
Wow.
And I was thinking on those journeys, I thought, God, wouldn't it be dull if you didn't have anything to listen to? It's really nice. If there's anything nice about a journey that long, apart from the stiff legs I got out at either end, it's having sort of unadulterated time just to listen to stuff and really kind of take it in and And the variety of different stations that there are available is fantastic, really. I've often said, and I think I've probably said it on this podcast, that, I mean, I'd pay my license fee just for, a decent radio station, never mind television. But when you're stuck with just the radio, it's really lovely. You really appreciate how much variety there is on it. So I'm grateful for car radios.
I think that's a very good one. And I think it's something we do take for granted. But you're right. I remember in the early days when cars didn't have them in. Yeah. And I remember my dad getting one as a Christmas present, a car radio, and he went out there and fitted it all in. He could do all that sort of thing himself. Yeah. All of a sudden, there was this radio going on in the car, and I think we were all grateful for that. It was lovely. Yeah,
exactly. There you go. See, that's the thing. You see, these things that just become part and parcel, ubiquitous in our lives. Yeah, quite useful sometimes to. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation you think, I'm really grateful to have that. What would it be like if I didn't have it?
Yeah,
it's like a technological equivalent of the wheel. I was also grateful for wheels, otherwise I wouldn't have got to Scotland and back.
To Scotland,
yeah.
And I suspect you listened to quite a lot of music when you were on the radio. I'm thinking about it. It was probably a lot of spoken word you listened to as well, wasn't it?
I only resorted to music on the second half of the journey home because I quite like to listen to spoken word, but. Yeah. When I start to feel a little bit fatigued, I need music. Because speaking will send me to sleep.
It can be overcomforting.
If it was you speaking.
If it was overcomforting. We know you know that people use their podcast as a sleep aid.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have listened to our podcast. No. That would have sent me straight off.
Yeah, that would have been good. So anyway, on this day in music, obviously you've been listening to a bit of music, which is that was the clunky segue into this next part.
Yeah, very good. Nice one.
In what year, right? So we've got 3 questions again for you.
Yeah.
2 points for a correct year.
Yeah.
And a point for a year either side.
Yeah.
Are we all right with that?
I'm feeling confident this week, actually.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll squash that straight away.
Right.
Actually, no one. You may be all right with this one. In what year, number 1 in the UK, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that, by Meatloaf. What year was that number 1?
Now, I reckon this is probably earlier than I think, because I reckon Bat Out of Hell came out late 70s. I reckon that was probably 78, 79. So I'm going to say I reckon it's 79 or 80. I'm going to say 80.
1993.
What?
Yeah. Oh, it was post Bat Out of Hell, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, quite a long time later. He had lots of different singles out in between.
I might have to cut that bit out. That's so embarrassing.
Because it's such a long, such a long way out. Yeah.
That wasn't on Bat Out of Hell, was it?
No,
it wasn't.
No, it's on a later album.
Was I right about Bat Out of Hell? Was that about sort of 79, 80?
I haven't got that in front of me, but that sounds about right to me. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm not feeling quite as confident now.
You got no points on that.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what year Hank Marvin was born? Hank Marvin, Hymn of Shadows fame.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Guitarist.
I'm going to say 1943.
Oh, he's just out for 1941. You're so close to getting a point.
Oh, no, that's disgraceful. I was going to say 1940. I'd have got myself a point.
You would. And so we've done a number 1 and we've done a born. So
now it's a death.
It's a death, yeah. Do you know what year? At the age of 27, Janis Joplin died.
1973.
Oh, you should just stop there at 1970.
Oh.
Very close.
That's so annoying.
Not as a big Janis Joplin fan, but I suspect you probably like a bit of Janis Joplin, don't you?
I'm not massively into Janis Joplin, but I suppose I'll redeem myself a little bit. Two within 3 years after my shocking attempt at Meatloaf, the late Meatloaf.
The late Meatloaf, bless him.
The late Meatloaf, the late Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
And Marvin's the only one alive.
Hank's still going. Born in 1941. He's still.
They could get the Shadows back together because Cliff's still going, isn't he?
Yeah, there's. I listened to the new Rolling Stones single that's out at the moment. And, Mick Jagger's 80. He's still making singles.
There's still hope for us.
There is, yeah.
We could still make it big.
bit late to start our careers in that area. But,
Oh, never know.
but
Anyway.
that's about it, mate.
Good.
So it was
I'm
a bit
gonna
more
go
serious. You're right. It was a bit more serious this week, wasn't it, really?
Well, that's all right. We can't give the listeners belly laughs wall to wall every week,
No,
can
we
we?
can't. No, we'll have to put
I mean,
a bit
if
more...
you're expecting that of us, don't be so unreasonable.
Well, exactly. Perhaps we're doing... And recording it in the evening after a day's graft.
Exactly.
Not quite so bubbly, are we?
No, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is,
I don't
yeah.
think people realise how difficult it is before they start moaning.
You can hear him moaning already, can't you?
It's
Have a word
disgraceful.
with yourself.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
All right, mate.
Laters.
Bye.
Right. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandy-wellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.